Oi oi, hello and welcome to another GG.CO.UK trends video, again kindly sponsored by Boyle Sports. We've done the big classic for the boys. It's time for the ladies to come to the fore. On the 6th of June, it is the Epsom Oaks, and while typically it seems to be Aidan O'Brien or John Gosden that trains the winner of this race, that wasn't the case last year, and we've currently got a Charlie Appleby favourite at the head of the market. This is being recorded on the 15th of May, nice and early to get it out for you guys on a Sunday. I'm going to run through the prices for the Oaks with Boyle Sports, so these prices are correct at the time of recording. Now look, there's lots of water to go under the bridge between now and then, but as it stands at the moment, Desert Flower is your 11-4 favourite. Mini Hawk is in at 7-1. It's then 8-1 for both Whirl and Falakea. Falakea was the winner of that Pretty Polly Stakes the same day as Desert Flower. Giselle is in at 10-1. It's then 14-1 Dreamy, 16-1 Lake Victoria, Ballet Slippers, and Bigger the rest. Look, it looks a pretty good race. We talked in the Derby trends about, I want to say, some obvious things that I said in terms of, you know, fancied runners, favourites, top-rated runners. Even when we alluded to the draw, it seemed almost captain hindsight. However, when I've done these Oaks trends, there are quite a few that are, well, quite very different to the Derby. So I'm going to talk you through those in this video. There will be a link in the description to the full article in this cheat sheet. I've gone through different sections, which we'll talk about briefly in this video. We look at draw, we look at prices, we look at last time out, we look at two-year-old record, we look at ratings, we look a little bit into the trainers too. Bit more detail in that written article. Of course, this video is an oversight. So without further ado, let's run through some of those top line trends, and I'll give you a little bit more information where I see fit. Now, the draw doesn't really matter, but preference goes to those in stalls 5 or lower. Now, when we did the Derby, or when we talked about the Derby, since gates were introduced in 1967, there's not been a winner of the Derby come out of stall 2. However, when you look at the Oaks, this century there's been 2 winners from 2, there's been a winner from 1, there's been 5 winners from 3, 1 winner from 4, and 4 winners from stall 5. And 7 of the 10 winners this last decade came from stall 5 or lower. So it does look like, I don't want to say a massively different trend, but we were looking at stalls 7 or higher, I think, were prominent for the Derby stuff. Talk about the Oaks trends here, but 5 or lower looks like it's the place to be. I don't think it'll be the be-all and end-all, because we have had winners a little bit further out, but it does seem in the long term, you want to be drawn in stall 5 or lower if you can help it. We want to look at prices as well. Favourites have done okay-ish, but they do lose money across both this century and the last decade. You want to really look for runners priced between 9-2 and 8-1 at SP. Of course, recording this early, quoting those early prices, we don't know what the SP is going to be of these horses. However, if you'd have backed every runner between 9-2 and 8-1 this century, you'd be showing profit. But it's 150% return on investment in the last decade, backing all runners priced 9-2 to 8-1 at SP. It's profitable to back second, third, and fourth favourites in the last decade as well, although not this century. So look, fancied runners are up there, not necessarily the favourite though. When we talked about top-rated runners in the Derby, almost an obvious thing, but they did really well. You want to avoid the top-rated runner in the Oaks. They are very expensive to follow blind. Done these figures since 2003. The window changes slightly depending on how much information we can get in there, but it's a terrible system to follow. If we look a bit closer to the modern day, since 2011, there have been 11 favourites of the 14. The other 3 were 4-1 or shorter. 2 of them were 4-1, and then the other one I think was 3-1, but only 2 of those actually won the Oaks. Mad to think about it. And then we talk about expectations with these horses as well based on prices. There's half as many winners have won as would have been expected at the prices. So the easy way to explain that, most of you will know this anyway, but a coin flip has 2 possible outcomes. It is a 50-50 shot. In this instance here, we're talking about 14 runners. That's 14 runners where you'd expect there to be 7 heads and 7 tails, but it's been half as many results for the top rated runner that you'd be expected. So in that bad example, it would be 3.5 heads or 3.5 tails have come in when you'd expect some more. So with those types of systems, lots of people may say, well, for the future, does that mean that we're due some top rated winners of the race? Other people would look at it and say the coin flip is always 50-50 every time it runs, which would suggest the same in here. The top rated runner will have the chance that it's priced up to have. So again, you can treat these trends as you wish in there, but I'm looking to avoid the top rated runner in this race, whereas in the Derby, I would see that as a big positive. They're also likely to have been beaten in their career. That's a thing that goes across both periods, really. Lots of these horses that are Derby runners and Oaks runners, classic winners essentially, may not have needed to do anything at 2. They may be improvers at 3. Plenty have been beaten as 2-year-olds, and then if not, that plenty have been beaten there. I think it's only 2 winners of the Oaks this century had been unbeaten in their careers. Of course, you don't really want to look at that and say, wow, it's a negative because horse is unbeaten. You'd say that's a good thing, but not every horse can win this race, of course. There can only be one winner, yet you could have a handful of horses that come into this race unbeaten. Not all of them will be unbeaten after, will they? But ideally, you really want to look at it from a profile perspective. They probably have been beaten before. So it's not something to look down on, would probably be the best way to look at it if your horse has been beaten at either the 2 or even at 3. Now, the RPRs, 2-year-old RPRs are fairly low, to be honest with you. You could bring the ballpark all the way down to sort of 80 plus. If you start pushing up to the 90s, not necessarily that many winners will achieve that. If we look at it from 3-year-olds and above, so they would have raced as a 3-year-old, preferably want an RPR of 105 or higher, but as long as it's 103 or higher, that would probably sit you in the right ballpark. You would say that people talk about the sort of fillies allowance would be ranked included in there. I think it was 112 plus we would talk about for the boys. So the £7 difference between the boys and the girls. So although it looks like a lower number, you do need to consider that there would be the £7 probably considered in those figures. So look, that wraps up the Oaks trends for this year. There'll be a link in the description for the article. I'll submit that to the boys now. They'll get it uploaded on the website, I guess, as soon as they can. Video will go out Sunday, so it should be there. If not, come back and check it after. Just quickly, before we leave this, please, if you can, subscribe to the channel when you haven't already. Obviously, if you want to, make sure you drop a like on the video because it's nice to know which videos you do enjoy. Drop a comment below with what you fancy for this. There was already a couple of Derby stats that have been included from some of you guys at home, so they were really helpful and really good to see. And then I'll just touch on quickly again that we have started YouTube memberships for the GG.CO.UK channel. Details about that below. Every bit of our content will still be available for free. However, if you remember, you will get added benefits, so some extra perks, but you'll mainly get early access to a lot of these videos that go out. So look, like I say, they're there to be had anyway, so you don't necessarily have to do that. But if you wanted to support the channel and to help create some more videos like this, when we had our studio special for Cheltenham, we're hoping to do those types of things again. Look, we appreciate your guys' support just watching this sort of stuff anyway, so that's more than enough. A like on the video is absolutely fine. But as I say, we've started memberships. If you want to have a look at the details for that, check that below, and we'll see you again very soon.